Firstly, absolute honor to be a part of this August gathering. I really feel honored because it's got all the luminaries here. I think right from Ambassador Mudgal, who has been in Mauritius, and I had the opportunity to visit Mauritius 4 times during my career by ship for undertaking continental shelf surveys, as well as for doing the Indo-Mauritius Hydrographic Cooperation, leading the delegation there. And Admiral Jairatnaya already acknowledged his presence here. We also have collaborated in the hydrography part of it and ensured that Sri Lanka and India have moved hand in hand whenever there have been any hydrographic challenges. We have really covered a long distance. Very absorbing listening to everybody. And firstly, let me compliment Romit. Absolute absorbing presentation. I think he covered a very, very large canvas. He had to cover a large canvas because sediment is not one thing that is isolated to only one part. It is spread all across the oceans. 70% of the earth is oceans, and sediment is a part of that in every corner. So fantastic. Before I move on to some comments from mine, I would just address a few things, queries that Dr. Chandrasekhar had put up. So, firstly, sir, there are a few things about the hydrography part. The hydrography, as per the Government of India business rules, is required to undertake, the chief hydrographer rather, under the Ministry of Defense, is required to undertake all the navigation surveys and preparing the navigation charts, not only for the use by the Indian Navy, but also by the use of Indian Merchant Marine and all Merchant Marine across the world. This business rule actually flows from the IMO Charter of the UNCLOS, where UNCLOS says that every country has to ensure that safe navigation is provided to every mariner in their coastal areas, in their approaches, and wherever they are in close contiguous area to the land. So that responsibility has been done by the chief hydrographer from eons. So the legacy from the colonial past, it has been passed on. That is how we have a Sri Lankan chief hydrographer, we have one from Myanmar, we have from Bangladesh, because the responsibility of collecting the data is extremely tedious. You have embarked INS investigator. I'm sure you would have had an insight of the routine where nobody sleeps 24/7, 365 days, whether you're in harbor or when you're sailing, you're on. The propellers are churning. That is how the mines are churning. And because of this churn, that data finds its way onto the navigation charts. If the churn was not there for the eons, this data wouldn't have been there. You see the colonial charts, you see our Indian charts, even before the colonial powers to be came here. All have got fantastic data. That is why we were the primary seafarers going from India all the way to Indonesia. We were the primary seafarers going from here to the Persian Gulf. We were the primary seafarers who were exporting before the colonial powers came out here. The strength of navigation was there with us, and it was the hydrographers who were also the early explorers and the diplomats who ensured that the area was safe for navigation. Nobody wants to go out into the sea if you do not know if there is a rock or a reef. Nobody wants to be stranded. Nobody wants to become a wreck. So that is where the importance of hydrography came in. We are just carrying on that legacy on our broad shoulders and ensuring all the data for the country is being collated in one place. What is required for the mariners, that is open source, is provided to them. Last year, this organization under the Ministry of Defense earned a revenue of 100 crores only by selling the electronic navigation charts, which is again mandated by the International Maritime Organization. So we follow international standards. We have very exacting requirements, and the business of rules are scrupulously followed to ensure that everything is hunky dory. Gratifying for us is that not a single incident has taken place in the Indian waters because of an error in our chart. It is navigation errors by the seamen. not by the errors of a chart. I think that itself is very gratifying. So that puts into perspective who has the maximum data today and who's collated it. This data lies in the repository in the National Hydrographic Office at Dehradun, and it is utilized for multifarious purposes. The one that is required for the mariners is given to them. Other data which is classified is to be utilized for the requirements that come from time to time. So if this is the background of the data you're talking about. Now you're talking about sediments. When we are collecting the data, it is not only the depth. We are picking up the bottom sample from the ground as much as 100 meters, 200 meters, 300 meters. And that data, whether it is silt, clay, fine sand, coarse sand, is depicted on the chart. If a ship has to anchor, he cannot anchor till the time he does not know what the bottom is. Imagine a ship anchoring on a rock, the anchor will break. So everything underneath where the ship is should be known to him. That is where the sediments part come in. So all the charts are quite replete with how the sediments and where the sediments are. Maybe not very concentrated, but maybe the requirement is for the mariners because this is the minimum they can do. For the fisherman wants to know that nets should not get entangled into a rock. It's there on the chart for him to see. And these charts are available free. The charts are available though at a cost, but they're available. It's an open domain. That is where I said you will not only monetize them, you democratize them equally in equal measure. Now, coming to the points that Romit had raised, I think we are blessed to have such a wonderful subcontinent where we have the maximum number of sediments. It's not an impediment, it's a complement that we have them. We only need, like you said, sir, we need to harness these sediments to ensure we get the best from the soil that is available with us. Now, uh, how do we harness this potential? Now, that's a very, very big question. Like Kamada Das just mentioned, situational awareness. We just do not have situational awareness because everybody is collecting the data in their own vertical. When anybody is collecting the data in their own vertical, it is with them. You just mentioned the Jal Shakti Ministry. He is responsible for all the inland water data, and I think they are doing a very, very good job in doing that. So they do their bit, they do the reservoirs, they do the dam, and I think they're doing a fantastic job. It's only how the data is to be utilized and how the data is to be used by another agency. That is where the bottleneck is. Now, do I need the complete data to be populated and put on the, let's say, a platform, let's say marine spatial planning that we are all propagating about? No, we need to put the data that is required for a mariner to have a glance. The other layers of data, unclassified data, can easily go into this marine spatial planning. Absolutely, there's no problem at all. Let's say I want to know where the windmills are, wind farms are, where it's available, should be available to me. Because if a pilot is flying from there, he should know the height of the wind farm. If a height of a wind farm is, let's say, 80 meters, I'm sure the pilot will not go there. A helicopter will not go there. In a Survey of India chart, you may not have that. But on a navigation chart, on a sea chart, you'll have that because you have marked the wilmot there. So that is available on the, should be available on the your marine spatial planning domain. And that's what Commander Arnab Das has always been mentioning. That have a marine spatial planning which is generically available for all the mariners and the users. You want to have let's say a cable which is going from Mumbai and going all the way to Gulf. A fisherman needs to know where it is. Otherwise, he'll put his anchor there and he'll cut the cable. There have been instances of Bombay. I think every 1 year or 2 years the cable gets cut. So these are the things that need to go into a marine spatial planning. And when you're saying a marine spatial planning, sediments are the best thing because a cable will go through where there are sediments because sediments are soft. It will never pass a cable through a rock because you cannot cut through a rock and try to put a cable there. A cable will get cut there. So sediments are very important. So we need to know how to harness it. Coming to the port development, I think the ports have a fantastic potential. Dredging, Why can't the dredging volumes be taken up by the ports every year? The ports do the dredging every year, or maybe they do every 6 months or periodically. Now, if I got the data of the last 10 years, do I need to work out again? AI can help me out. This is what I'm sure that the MRC is trying to portray, that why can't AI be utilized for the port dredging? And imagine I giving this data to the Dredging Corporation of India. Dredging Corporation of India for the next 10 years will say, okay, fine, my requirement from Bombay Harbour is, let's say, X cubic meters. So I need to have these many dredges for this much time for allotment for the next 10 years. Then the next dredging part of Dredging Corporation, he says that now I've collected this much of volumes of land. Where do I throw it? Do I throw it for any reclamation? Does anybody want to use it? Or do I dump it back into the sea without any use? So this is where the planning of a port can come in, and we can harness this complete mechanism through AI. So this is one part that I thought I would like to share, where the economics part can be dovetailed very easily into the marine spatial planning or the port infrastructure. Ground truthing, I think it's equally important, because if I do not have a ground truthing, and if a ship gets grounded, then what happens? He can claim for insurance from the port for wrong information. Who is responsible if a ship gets grounded? A port is saying, I've got 10 meters, but the ship says, okay, fine, you have told me 10 meters, I'm coming inside. I've got 9.5 meters and I get grounded. So what does the port say? I'm sorry. He can't say that. So that is where it is very important to have periodical surveys done again and again and again. Do you know, as per the statistics, just 30 centimeters of depth, now this is called hydroeconomics, 30 centimeters of depth can give me 2000 tons more. 2000 tons more. And that 2000 tons, let's say, if I'm getting 2000 tons in the present crisis, let's say 2000 tons of petrol, 100 rupees per liter, that's 20 crores. 20 crore rupees, 30 centimeters. And that's what hydroeconomics is. So I need to give, or we need to give, the exact depths to any of the ships coming in. And that 30 centimeter can make a difference. This is where, again, AI comes in very importantly, which can be taken care of, because, again, you need to clear the sediments. Let's say offshore platforms. Offshore platforms, this is serious business, because offshore platforms, where they're going to be, is coming under the ambit of Director General of Hydrocarbons. So when Director General of Hydrocarbons is going to ensure that I need to put an oil rig on the west coast, he sends a vessel to first do a hydrographic survey. Then he sends a vessel or a survey company to do the seismic survey. And then after that, he physically puts in pods to get the coring sample and tries to find out where the hard bottom is. Because there is no oil rig in this world which will go and put itself there without the ground truthing and the complete scientific data. So this is one place you cannot even think of doing any AI. You have to do the ground truthing here. It is exactness. Imagine if there's a punch out. A punch out means one of the oil rigs, one legs, just punches the soil and goes inside. The whole oil rig will collapse. You cannot take a risk like this. So instances like this, sediments being there, you have to do ground truthing to get the exactness. Coming to man-made structures, I think jetties, piers, groins, uh, we have made some amount of avoidable errors in these cases. Only if we had had data, the organizations which planned these groins or jetties, it could have been better. Let's say take an example of Kum River in Chennai. Uh, there is a sludge in that river, and the mouth never opens. Right from the Chennai harbor, that stink can be, I think, is all over. So why did this happen? They made two groins even without understanding what the longshore drift is. A longshore drift is nothing but the littoral drift. A littoral drift is nothing but the sediment transportation. Everybody knows that on the east coast, because the waves are hitting the coast at an angle, the drift of the sediments is from south to north, at least for 9 months. It's only for 3 months with the retreating monsoons, you have the reverse currents. These groins or the extensions from the coast could have been made in a better way. I'm just giving a few examples. Marina Beach is a consequence of having the jetty of Chennai coast. Marina Beach was not there earlier. 100 years back, Marina Beach was next to the road, East Coast Road. So these are the consequences of man-made avoidable errors, which we could have seen. But with a lot of data being collected now, and again, you cannot do extrapolation till the time you do not have big data. You got to have data. So collection of the data and having data is the most important thing, and that's what MRC has been trying to say. That I think if we have to populate data, but how? That's the question. I think that is where governance comes in. You got to break the silos. In every silos and every vertical, you can say, give us this much data, so at least we can understand what is happening at sea. Military applications. Well, sediment is a friend and sediment is a foe. You have to befriend the sediment in your waters to ensure that you gain the maximum from this. India subcontinent also has the maximum turbidity. Because of the turbidity, you just don't know where the underwater submarines are hiding, where the submarines are hiding. So that is another big advantage for us. So this is how the military applications. I will won't not go much into the military applications, and I'll skip that. Tourism. I think from the beaches, from Ganpati Phule to Goa to Kovalam, you name it, Mahabalipuram to Gopalpur, to Rishikonda to everywhere. You got the best beaches in India, one of the best beaches in the world. It's only that we have not been exploiting it. How has this happened? This has happened because of the sediment transportation. We got the sand, we got the silt, we got the clay. How have we got the rare earth? Those berms and dunes have again happened because of the longshore drift and the seasonal surges. We got fantastic rare earth dunes, sand dunes, which are good around 10 to 12 meters in Odisha coast. We got rare earth in that. How's that happened? So this is all courtesy the sediment movement from there. Why are we slowly opening up the Andaman? I think 5 islands are already being opened up on public partnership. Because of this, there has been sediments and there have been fantastic beaches. This is just coming up now in Andamans. 5 new islands is just coming up. So India is opening up. So we need to harness our sediments in such a way that they complement all that is around us. And just before I sign off, just to put the things in the right perspective, India's EZ that was calculated again by the hydrographers, though published by somebody else, is 2.11 million square kilometers. That's the latest one. That's 2025. The coastline now is 11098.81 kilometers and no longer 7615. And the number of islands that we have is 1379. That's been documented as late as last year. Thank you.